All right, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about how you ramp up your leadership with rocket fuel, right? So many of you may have read books on leadership. Maybe you've taken courses on leadership. Maybe you've gone through leadership training programs. Well, I'm here to tell you I've gone through years and years and years and years and years of leadership trainings, just countless leadership trainings, from life coaching leadership trainings, all the way to church leadership trainings, all the way through corporate leadership trainings. And I'm just going to distill down some principles here that are very, very important, right? Some things people talk about, some things people don't talk about. And I'm going to give you practical use cases as well. Practical evidence-based experiences. So what is leadership? Leadership is your ability to lead others. Where does that start? Leadership starts with you. That means that you have to be someone worth following. How are you going to become someone worth following? Your habits, your systems, your beliefs, your actions, your behaviors, your thought processes, your emotions need to all be in alignment with the path or the vision you're going on, and it needs to be easily communicated to others so that others can see the value of where you're going, how you're going to get there, and they see that your path is the best path to getting there. It's really that simple. So, one, focus on the habits and systems, the thought processes, the emotional regulation for you. You have to have everything down pat, right? Get good sleep, drink a lot of water, make sure that your habits are in check. If you need to exercise, go exercise. If you need to eat clean, right? Look at Andy Elliott. He's a clear example of why people want to buy from him, because he's a physical representation of the products and services he sells, right? You need to be in alignment through and through. The inside needs to match the outside. Everybody has been there. I remember so many times where I would go into a GNC and then there would be a guy who's overweight trying to pitch me some sort of new product or service that GNC has, some new protein powder that's really top tier, and that if I don't get it, I'm clearly wasting my money. And I would look at him and I would look at the product and I would think to myself, maybe that product is great, but the guy selling it to me is not a physical representation of the person, of the products or services. You may have had a doctor who is very, very overweight, but who's trying to pitch you on certain things that you need to get. I don't go to doctors like that. I don't go to nutritionists like that. I don't go to healthcare providers like that. So why would people want to follow you? Ask yourself that question over and over and over again. And start building those systems, those habits, that emotional regulation. Start building all of that, those thought processes of the person that you would yourself want to follow. Next, you have to work on your ability to communicate, and to communicate effectively and clearly. Communication is such a very important part of relationships, and most people struggle with this. I'm communicating without a script. That's very difficult for most people to do, but I have trained myself to speak publicly. I've trained myself to speak in crowds of tens, hundreds, and even 1,000 people. And I have no problem. I have no fear of this. Why? Because I'm just having a conversation. It's not a one-way thing where I'm talking at somebody, but it's really me sharing. It's me conversing back and forth, right? And that's why I encourage you, like, comment, subscribe, give me some feedback on how I'm doing, right? Your ability to communicate needs to be at the masterful level, right? So if you're not masterful at communicating, go find outlets where you can practice communicating, right? Join Toastmasters, join leadership training programs where you have to convey what it is that you're selling, right? And remember, you are constantly in a sales cycle. You're constantly sharing with people, and they're either enrolled in the idea that you're talking about, or they're not, right? And the more you communicate, the more you open yourself up to that rejection, the more confident you will be over time, right? I talked about how one of my mentors said how confidence is the willingness to socially injure yourself, right? Your communication only gets better the more you're willing to socially injure yourself. Go out there, go talk to people about things that are important to you. See how people respond. Start to make tweaks, right? Comedians do this all the time and they're masterful at this. They go on a comedy show, they tell the story with the exact arc, and they fine-tune little words, bits and pieces, elements of the story here and there, and they practice it and they practice it and they practice it. And many times if you go to a comedy show, you might even see the comedian, the one who's about to present, the one who's about to go on stage and perform. You might see them before the event, and you might see them outside, and they might be listening to tapes of all of their jokes. I've seen it countless times. I remember there was one time I went to a comedy show. I went to the DC Improv, and Aries Spears, who I was going to see, very funny guy, but he was there. He was outside, and he was listening on his headphones. He was listening to his script. He was listening to his stuff. So if they're able to take their ability to communicate that seriously, where they need to go back through tape, they need to listen, they need to see how people responded, why aren't you doing that, right? So as a leader, you should go back to see how is my communication either falling short or meeting the standard of excellence that I'm setting for myself. Build up that ability to communicate effectively, where you are able to sway people, where you are able to influence people for the greater good, right? If you have a product or service that you're willing to sell, that you're looking to sell, why should people be interested? Why is it a benefit for them? Why do they need it now? Why is it that the other competitors are terrible, but yours is great? Think about those things, right? Think about your ability to communicate. Now, once you build yourself up, you have the habits and the systems down, you have the ability to communicate down, one of the things I was talking about is your thought processes. Your thought processes need to be ironclad, right? Your thought processes need to be really, really sharp. You need to be taking inventory of what am I thinking? What are my fears? What am I feeling guilty about? What do I feel ashamed about? What am I upset about? And really going deep on that. Why did that happen? How did that happen? How do I get back on track? You'll realize your thoughts, right? These fears, they're all fake. They're all fake fears. You might have a fear of going bankrupt. You might have a fear that your stockholder, your shareholders are going to fire you. You might have a fear of all of these things, but the fears keep you constricted. Your fears keep you immobilized. Your fears keep you paralyzed. So let go of the fears, disregard the fears, and focus on expansion. Focus on how you're going to get there, right? Remember I told you in a previous video about why versus how. Why keeps you stuck? How keeps you expanded? How keeps you moving forward? How can I, right? Ask yourself those questions. Now, the more you go forward, the more you expand yourself, the more you keep challenging yourself, you're gonna have to get your thought patterns down pat, right? You're gonna notice that there is an ebb and a flow. The more you challenge yourself, you're putting yourself out there and risking social injury, the more that your emotions are in flux, right? 1 minute you're having highs, the next minute you're having lows. The 1 minute you're having highs, the next minute you're having lows. So you have to train yourself as a leader to be more stoic. The Stoic philosophy, right? Go read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Go read Heraclitus. Go read any of these Stoic philosophers, right? Marcus Aurelius is one of my favorites, but you also have some of the other greats, right? Some were emperors, some were slaves, some were anywhere in between. But the thing is, they really understood you are not your feelings. You are the thoughts that you create. You are the thoughts that you hold in your mind over and over again. So if you cannot discipline your thoughts will run rampant, right? So you are not the environment around you that's burning, but you are the person that is in the environment who gets ownership of how he responds, how he or she responds. So you have to discipline your thoughts. This is some of the lessons that the Stoic greats came up with, right? Seneca and Marcus Aurelius really speak to me many times when I reflect on some of the things that they went through in their life, but also their wisdom, their proverbs. And aside from that, what you'll realize is don't let praise move you. Don't let criticism move you. Why do I say that? When you let praise move you, you become, the problem with that is that you can now form a consulate, you can form a council of yes men, yes women, people who only tell you what you want to hear. That is manipulation. And you see it all the time with politicians. You see it all the time with people in institutions where they surround themselves with people who only tell them what they want to hear. And then the problem with that is you are now moved by the praise, by the adulation. Your ego is now influenced by everything that they have to say. This is the problem with that. Find contrarian thinking. Find contrarian ways of looking at things. See what happens on both sides, right? That phrase is called devil's advocate. I don't really like that, but think about that, right? Think about what the opposite side would say. Okay, are you pro this? Then what would be the con of doing that? Let's weigh things in the balance a little bit, right? Go towards contrarian thinking. Don't just be a yes man who's moved by praise. Now, at the same time, don't be somebody who's only motivated by criticism, right? So if you need to feel pain in order to take action, that's a problem too, because if you're doing good, you might get lazy, right? But if you are one of those people where criticism cripples you, like a lot of people, and it hurts you, and you take it personally, and you're just like, well, why are they coming after me? What did I do wrong? I must be a failure. I must be a screw up. I must be this. Don't let the praise or the adulation move you. You have to be neutral. You have to maintain your baseline, right? This is what the Stoics knew. This is what if you read any of the Stoic wisdom, it is 100% aligned with that. You can even see this in many cases in the Bible as well. If you read through Psalms, you see David going through his ebbs and flow, right? One minute he's having a high and he's very happy. The next minute he's having a low and he's wondering where is his God. And then you're also looking at Proverbs, right? You look at Proverbs, you see this countless times with King Solomon having such beautiful wisdom laid out. And then if you look at Ecclesiastes, it's a very somber, kind of darker kind of version of wisdom, but both are needed, right? You can't be moved by the praise, you can't be moved by the adulation. So when you look at these, the Stoic philosophers, you look at Solomon as well. You see so much wisdom that is there, and most of it, you're realizing that men will fail you. People around you will fail you. You are the one that is ultimately accountable and responsible. You can't wait or depend on anyone else to get the job done in your environment. You're the one. No one's coming. You're the one. So if you're the one, that means you have to get rid of the fear. It means you have to get rid of the guilt. That means you have to get rid of the shame. You have to get rid of all the thoughts that are hindering you and holding you back. Now, this is where emotional processing comes into play. You have to be very, very good at emotional processing on a regular basis. There's so many different modalities around emotional processing. A lot of people like journaling. A lot of people just like meditating. A lot of people like EFT. There's so many different ones out there. Pick whichever one helps you. You want to get that high flux emotion down to its baseline, right? You are not the flux. You are not the ebb and the flow going up and down. You are that baseline, right? So you have to maintain that. So what that means is for people who are in high stress environments, they need to be doing this on a regular basis. You can't just wait, right? So if you're in a low stress environment, maybe you don't feel that ebb and flow as much because you haven't challenged yourself as much. You haven't risked social injury as much. So now when you put yourself out there, you're speaking about topics that are controversial, you're selling things, and you have a very tight deadline and you have to deliver on time. Now you are in that flux. You are facing those emotions. You are thinking, what if I don't deliver on time? What if they fire me? What if they sue me? What if they do this, right? So you have to rein in your thoughts. Don't be moved by criticism. Don't be moved by praise. You have to be at your baseline. And from there, you have to emotionally process on a regular basis. This is one of the things that high performers do, is they remind themselves that the praise means nothing, the criticism and the guilt trips mean nothing. They know that neither of those extremes means anything. Neither of those extremes mean anything. Top leaders are not moved by praise or adulation. They're not moved by the yes men. They're not moved by the haters. You have to be able to distinguish the good and the bad in both, right? So if there are critics and they're telling you, hey, if you did this, you would really be a rock star. You can't take that personally and let that hit your ego. You have to really look at it objectively. What is it that they're trying to say to me? What is it that would really benefit me from what they're saying? Is there value in what they're saying, right? Take those, mine that gold and use it. Meanwhile, on the praise side, if you're getting praise, look at what they're praising you about. Look at what they're happy about. Take that and mine that for gold and use that. Don't be moved by one or the other. Now, once you have a certain capacity, now you might be communicating better. You might be having your thought process down. You might be emotionally regulating way more. But remember, you need to make that a daily ritual, a daily habit where you process your emotions, right? I do this on a regular basis. I process through my emotions. I have different formats of doing it. I prefer EFT. I do try other forms. Sometimes I do creative visualizations in my mind just because I am very, very gifted at visualization. So your subconscious mind thinks in pictures and symbolism, imagery. So if you can transmute some of those emotions, you absolutely can disappear the emotional residue, the emotional challenges that you're facing, right? Maybe you're feeling a lot of guilt. Maybe you're feeling a lot of fear. Maybe you're feeling a lot of panic, strife. You can actually transmute those down, right? Colors, symbolism, those are a language in and of itself to the subconscious mind. And yes, you can transmute it, right? Creative visualization helps with that. EFT, very, very powerful. Combines tapping with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? You're erasing one distortion, one generalization, one deletion at a moment, right? You're shifting a lot of those cognitive distortions one at a time. There's other forms. Meditation definitely helps. One of my trainers, he used to talk about the importance of emotional regulation. So if you have a negative emotion, if you can force yourself to feel that negative emotion, not just think about it, not just resist it, but feel it. So let's say I'm feeling sorrow. If I force myself to feel that sorrow for 2 minutes straight, I believe it's 90 seconds to 2 minutes, 90 to 120 seconds. If you're able to just feel it uninterrupted, that will process the emotion so that it reduces its strength by 50%. So that is a practice right there. Maybe you're resisting that pain. Maybe you're resisting that fear. Go inside and just focus on the fear and just hold it. Don't resist it, just hold it. Put a timer, 2 minutes. It will reduce just like that by 50%. You do this over and over again, it will eventually get to zero. Once you're at zero, you're back at your baseline. That fear no longer holds you. That fear no longer cripples you, right? So I've talked to you about some of the principles about leading yourself, leading others, communicating, emotional regulation. All of these are some of the foundational pieces of good leadership. Now, there are principles of managing others. There are principles of working with others that you have to have down. And if you don't have that down, you are screwing yourself as a leader. So you have to remember that everybody needs to share a common vision. We all need to, all of the people on your team, all of the people in your organization need to share a common vision. It needs to be central of why we're doing what we're doing and how we're gonna get there, right? They need to see you as the person who is selling them on the vision. They need to see you as the person who is reminding them of their vision. They need to see you as somebody who is fiercely dedicated to that vision. You know, the scripture says, without vision, the people perish, right? So you want to keep the vision really, really strong, really, really sharp. And you need to be able to communicate it on a regular basis. So I have found that leaders who do regular town hall meetings with their companies, with their organizations, they do really extremely well because the people keep the vision in mind. Why? Who are the customers? What are we providing as a service? Why are we doing what we're doing? How can we improve, right? They're constantly looking at the organization, right? Secondly, you want to invest in systems thinking, right? There's an idea of local optimization and there's an idea of systems thinking. So what are these two ideas? I had to learn this in project management, but essentially local optimization means imagine you're a mechanic and there's engine trouble. And you know that the engine is needed for this car to work. Local optimization would mean there's a nut or a bolt that needs to be tightened. Let me go tighten that nut and that bolt, and let me make sure that it is tightened, that it is secured, and that everything looks good from that one perspective, locally. That's local optimization. What does that actually do for the health of the car, the ability of that car to run? It does nothing. You might even polish that nut and that bolt. You might make it look really clean. You might replace it. But what does that do for the car's ability to run? Nothing. A lot of the times, we as leaders, we think that making this one little change is going to have this dramatic impact. But in reality, it's local optimization. It's just like replacing a nut and a bolt when the entire system is still not running. Whereas systems thinking is very different. Systems thinking is the big picture. And sometimes we need to keep that big picture in mind. In NLP, we would call this chunking up, right? You need to look at the big picture to see how to better navigate and shift in the entire system. So look at the big system. How do we go about making this system work? So for some people, local optimization, they might think that that's leadership, but that really doesn't do anything for the entirety of the group. So systems thinking would say, hey, if we fix the engine, if we replace the engine, the car will run again. It may not look beautiful, but the car will run again. So let's focus our time, energy, and efforts on that. That's systems thinking. That's looking at the big picture. It's not getting bogged down with, oh, this nut needs to be replaced. Oh, we need a cabin filter over here. We need this. No, it's looking at what is the 20% that moves the 80%. That's the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle, right? You want to look at what's that 20% that makes 80% of that difference. Now, you're going to have to, now that I've talked about some of the foundational stuff and then even systems thinking, you're also going to have to be very, very skillful at social dynamics. Social dynamics are very, very key. You're going to have to interact with people on a regular basis as a leader. What type of leader are they? Are they introverted? Are they extroverted? Are they ambiverted? What motivates them? Is it looking good? Is it not looking bad? Is it a sense of autonomy? Is it a sense of mastery? Is it a sense of purpose? What is it that motivates each individual? Motivating teams, you will see that if you can raise the level of the team's autonomy, their ability to make decisions on their own, mastery, their search or their quest to go after perfection and excellence, and purpose, sharing that vision that they're working towards. If you're able to focus on those three, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, the team will run on its own. When you focus on looking good and not looking bad, this is where teams fall apart. So these are some principles. And then also, as a leader, you have to be held accountable and you have to hold others accountable. But I will tell you this from my own personal experience. I was reflecting back. The leaders I had the most respect for were the ones who were able to share vision, to communicate, to represents people to the vision, the why of what we're doing. The other leaders that I respected the most were the ones that fiercely defended their team when there was politics, right? If I came under fire by another team member's leader and I talked to my leader, if my leader did not have my back and really look at things objectively and have my back to defend me, I would mentally go to a place where I would check out. And this is the reality for most people. If you look online and you look up the words silent quitting, more often than not, silent quitting happens when an employee feels like there's an injustice aimed at them. Maybe they didn't get that raise. Maybe they didn't get that benefit. Maybe they didn't get the respect that they're looking for. Maybe they didn't get that recognition. Maybe they got criticized. Maybe an unfair policy came their way. What I noticed is that when leaders can fiercely defend their team as their own, the people can sense that loyalty and they will want to be loyal. They won't be seeking those other opportunities because they'll think hard and they'll think like, where am I going to find another leader like this that's going to fiercely defend me, that's going to advocate for me to get that raise, that's going to speak highly of me, put me in those positions where I can meet those senior leaders. Who else is going to do that? They're going to have to think long and hard before leaving. And I've been in those situations where I had to think long and hard, where I have had good leaders and I've had poor leaders. I had leaders who motivate with an iron fist and who motivate with insult and injury in order to get what they want. Those are poor leaders. Don't be like them. I've also had leaders who say all the right things, who try to motivate you, try to make you feel good. But remember, don't be swayed by praise and adulation. If they're not willing to fiercely advocate for you, if they're not willing to invest in you, if they're not willing to take you to the next level along with them for the ride, why would you surrender to their leadership? Why would you want to be accountable to them in the first place? So always remember, if you are the leader, you need to see yourself as somebody worth following. If you are held up on pride, ego, looking good in front of the customer, not looking bad, defending yourself from shame, you can't hack it as a leader.